Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Plus Local Support. I hope you're all doing well in these troubled times. How is everybody? Everybody good?
All good, mate.
Yeah.
All good.
Yeah, sound.
Brilliant. Today's episode, we're going to be discussing Jimmy Eat World, a band that's very influential to all of us, all three of us, I think it's fair to say. Jimmy Eat World are a rock band formed in Arizona in 1993. They have 10 studio albums to date and made their commercial breakthrough in 2001 with their album Bleed American, which went gold in March 2002. They're regarded as one of the most influential bands of the last 20 years for many people, definitely for all three of us, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I would say is I think they're definitely that kind of cult band. They were kind of slightly away from the mainstream in terms of your Blink and your Green Days, but definitely in terms of the fan base, very, very similar. There's a lot of kind of Blink and kind of Green Day fans that will always list Jimmy Eat World in their kind of top 10 favorite bands.
Yeah,
I'm a massive fan. Definitely in my top two, Blink and then Jimmy Eat World, for totally different reasons. So, yeah, this is heaven for me, this episode.
brilliant.
Yeah, easily for me. They're in my top 10 favorite bands of all time, definitely. I say they've influenced how I play guitar, how I write lyrics, all sorts of things like that. Just their ear for melody and things like that. They're just absolutely on point. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to go along with that. They're definitely in my top 10 bands of all time. I just love, Jim Adkins, his songwriting. I think it's incredible. Lyrically, he's probably the most inspirational person out there for me. Just incredible. And I agree, Steve. I think everyone who's into Green Day and Blink, of course, they had that monster tour way back in the day. The Pop
Disaster tour.
Yeah. Which
what I wouldn't do to get a ticket for that now and go back in time.
I know. Have you seen the DVD?
Have I seen the DVD? I've watched that. Yeah. Yeah, literally. Absolutely love that. I mean, I'm a big fan of kind of the documentaries of bands and stuff, but to watch all those three bands plus this silly little band that kind of they get thrown on. If anyone hasn't seen it, it's Riding in Vans with Boys, and it's a kind of a documentary of a band who are thrown onto this massive tour, and they've got to kind of deal with the kind of the strains of touring life, I guess. Yeah,
I got to see that. Incredible. I haven't seen that.
I
haven't seen that. I have to check it out. Yeah, someone's have to lend me that, man, or just send me a link. I need to watch that.
It's all on YouTube.
Yeah. Man, I want to see that. It sounds awesome.
The band so called Cut You Up, if I remember right.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Okay.
They're really, really funny guys. And I'm not sure they're musicians anymore, but
also, here's a really, really good fact. The lead singer of Cut You Up, the woman who he was married to, is now going out with Tom DeLonge. Fact.
Oh.
Fact.
Wow.
Brilliant.
Even though she looks just like his ex-wife Jen, it could be the same person, to be honest.
Yeah, I thought that. It's a little bit weird. I mean, we'll discuss Blink a little bit heavier on the next podcast.
Don't mention Blink. This has nothing to do with Blink. Don't mention him.
You did bring them up, not me.
It was my fault. I'll take it back.
But yeah, Jimmy, just incredible. So when did you first get into him, Steve?
I'll be honest with you. We're going back to Blink, and actually a DVD.
Steve.
Everything leads back to Blink-182. There was Blink had a DVD called the Urethra Chronicles, which I'm sure we're all familiar with.
Seen that one?
Yeah. No, there's three.
Good. Yeah. There are a couple, but the first one, Tom is listing kind of his influences, and one of the bands he mentions is Jimmy Eat World. So as a massive Blink fan at the time, it was one of those bands. I was like, basically, we'll Google them and we'll have a look and see what they're all about. And for me, they totally took me to a totally different place.
Yeah.
For me, Blink-182 were the band that got me into the style of music and that kind of Durham heavy guitar. Not heavy guitar, but in terms of your rock guitar riffs and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Jimmy Eat World were the band that kind of, in the simplest way possible, made me feel absolutely feel that type of music. I was lucky enough to be the Bleed American record was kind of the first one for me. Getting into kind of those riffs, the middle, as much as it's the most overplayed song now, it's still such a great song. Though which pains me to say a little bit, because I am the first person to go, oh, not the middle again.
Yeah.
But actually, do you know what? It is there are all the small things. And
true. It's actually got 300 million more streams than any other record on their Spotify.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
So yeah, that's
Fact.
significantly huge.
We're all about the facts on this podcast.
That's
Even
right.
if they're incorrect.
That's right. I love an incorrect fact, me.
Yeah. No, but yeah, no, for me, they took me to a different place. They took me to a different style of music that allowed me to start thinking about writing lyrics that weren't about dicks and poo. Because obviously when I first started in the band, it was all about Blink and it was all about dicks and shit.
Dicks and
Whereas
poo.
Jimmy Eat World,
Yeah.
dicks and poo. Yeah. And obviously Jimmy Eat World went, actually, you can have a heart. You can actually tell us how you feel. You know, we'll talk about it.
It was was it your emo awakening?
Absolutely my emo awakening. And out of all those kind of bands of that generation, Jimmy Eat World are the one that I've kind of stuck to. I mean,
It's like a band for life.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at what you just said in terms of the songwriting, I mean, how to hit somebody hard in the worst moment of their kind of, any of their songs could represent 15 times my life where I've put a Jimmy Eat World song on and just thought, fuck me, they're right. You know, they're really, really right. You know, this means so much to me, you know?
Yeah.
But weirdly, I don't think they had me in mind when they wrote it, which I know is a disaster.
No.
But it's so relatable.
Yeah. What about you, Stefan?
Well, I first got into them, I think it was just through watching Kerrang. I mean, I thought about this a lot earlier. I've not really got a fantastic story about how I got into them. Just, you know, I used to watch Kerrang a lot back in the day. A lot of music videos come up, and Sweetness, the music for video for that come up. And I just immediately fell in love with a lot of bands, but that song in particular. And then I went out and bought the album Bleed America.
Mm-hmm.
And, again, just fell in love with the lyrics. I mean, there aren't a lot of records that powerful in terms of like lyrically that I can relate to. You know, songs like A Praise Chorus and Authority songs like that, just lyrically they're just amazing. And I just completely just fell in love with them. And then from there I just wanted to check out their old stuff, and you know, they followed that up with another incredible album, you know, Futures. Nice t-shirt there, by the way, from that.
The most amazing record.
Yeah.
In a completely different way that kind of, for me, Bleed American touched me. Darren kind of way. It was new, it was exciting, it was something I'd never been involved with. It was that kind of 60s vibe of I love this girl, she loves me, or she doesn't love me, but actually with that feel of a rock band as well.
Yeah,
it put together those kind of 60s vibes that I had from kind of my kind of my growing up, and the kind of the Blink feels of the chords and the heavy drums, and it kind of stuck everything together. So for me, it is the Bleed American record was such an influential record.
Yeah,
definitely for me. But the Futures record, obviously we'll go on to talk about it, and there's a lot to talk about at the moment with that record.
Yeah.
Just so many songs that just completely take you into a different world.
Absolutely. And I think I just want to touch on the emo thing as well, because I think a lot of people, you know, nowadays they refer to emo with like black eyeliner and screaming and stuff like fringes, you know. You know,
I'm trying to grow it out. It's not happening.
Way back in college days, like I'm talking sort of 2003 to 2006, anything considered a rock song was basically labeled as emo, which was pathetic, you know. I think
lazy.
Go back to the true emo roots, and I think Jimmy with Clarity especially, and Bleed America, that's where emo really came from, and other bands like Sunny Day Real Estate, Texas Is the Reason. There were a lot of bands out there with a true emo sound. So yeah, don't be fooled by, you know, eyeliner and stuff like that. That, you know, I hate putting bands in genres and all that, but I think, you know, I think bands like Jimmy Eat World, the Get Up Kids, Sunny Day
Saves the Day, even they you know,
Saves the Day. Yeah.
Absolutely. These bands,
and there's no eyeliner. You know, there's no eyeliner there.
So the Juliana Theory.
Yeah, that's another. I mean, they're really good as well. But it's not about the image. It's the music. And that is, I think if you look into it, you do. You know, I've done some research on this a long time ago, when I was getting pissed off with, you know, everyone going around calling everything emo. But I'm pretty sure it started from like a punk scene and went into just bands that wanted to be a little bit more different. So they tried a different direction, and they were brave, you know, like, to come up with a new genre of music, you have to be brave, but they went down a different path. And I'm pretty sure that the first emo bands were sort of from Washington. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what I remember the emo.
I think pretty much a lot of this also boils down to how it became so popular in the mainstream. And then once the large major record labels realized there was money to be made, and they could effectively make people look a certain way. If you take like My Chemical Romance, you know, we start talking about the eyeliner and the fringe, and you think of like bands like Finch and things like that, you know, you know that there's something behind it, you know, like this is how you're supposed to this is your appearance, this is how you should be if you want to do this type of music and stuff like that.
So I mean, basically for me, if you're not into Aiden, you're not emo. do you know what I mean? Like definitely of the generation. Aiden, what a shit band.
I can remember seeing them one time, just to go off topic a little bit, just getting absolutely wasted. And by the time that Aiden were about to go on, he was like nowhere to be seen because he had got so drunk. Eventually he got on stage and played, but a strange, weird band. There's a reason why he's not around anymore, I suppose.
Well, he was just too emotional. Far too emotional.
Just all the tears.
All the tears, and it just, these are long before the days of like waterproof eyeliner. So I mean, think of the money the label
reapply.
Think of the money the label must have spent on eyeliner. Just every 2 minutes, I'm fucking crying again. So yeah, but so I mean, for me, in terms of the kind of Durham's funny in it because Jimmy are the perfect example of one of those bands that got massive with an album, and actually the album before it was probably bigger in terms of the sounds, the kind of the songs. Because Clarity is a record for the Jimmy Eat World fans is a bigger record than Bleed American. I honestly believe.
I was really surprised on how many people love Clarity, man. I hadn't really given it much of a listen, but
I love
people love it.
Clarity is it's a masterpiece. It is a masterpiece in terms of the songwriting, in terms of the kind of the guitar work, the overdubs on some of the drums and stuff. I mean, just beautiful. Just as an album, it's beautiful from start to finish. And I think the Bleed America, although it's got those kind of important tracks that got them to where they were, it's another one of those where I think actually the clarity was helped by the fact they built that mainstream album, because actually I don't think if they'd released another Clarity, we wouldn't be talking about them.
Yeah. Well, that was their breakthrough
for sure.
Bleed American, you know, a lot to do with the song The Middle. And that album, you know, that went gold a year later. So it was released in 2001. It went gold in March 2002, I believe.
Yeah. Well, if you look on Spotify, look at their top 10 most listened to tracks, 6 of them are from Bleed America.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a very important album for them. It's certainly given them, you know, a lot of bunts.
Oh, definitely. And I mean, you know, that was their breakthrough album. And after being dropped by the record label, it's a good story of, you know, not to give up on something you love doing, because, you know, that could have easily gone the other way if nobody had picked that album up, and who knows what would have happened after that.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that people... Go on, Carl, go on.
Oh, sorry, no, I was just going to say, like, just trying to remember where I was the first time I sort of heard them. And I'm fairly sure it was... I used to just go from record store to record store way back when. So there's a few places you could buy music other than HMV. And they used to have, like, those listening posts. We just have all the albums that are all preloaded and you go out there. And that was always like a really good source, because the guys who worked in HMV also were the local town promoters and, you know, DJ'd at the local nightclub and stuff like that. So they sort of would, you know, would take, you know, new stuff would come in and have a listen to it. And then they'd be like, oh, Carl, check this out, you know. And that was it. That was the first time I heard that, Bleed America, in July. A very warm summer. And I was just like, yeah, I'm going to buy it straight away. You know, I think I listened to like 2 tracks on that little podium and then just like hit the intros on the rest of them. And I was like, mate, I'm off. You know what I mean? Straight away bought that. It wasn't even a question. But I love that when you just hear an album, even just for a short period of it, you just know if it resonates with you.
For sure.
You just go, I love that. I can already tell I'm going to like it. You know, I've only listened to 15 seconds of that track, but I know I'm going to like this song. You know. That's an impressive thing to do, and that's what I think is so awesome about Bleed America, is because you know, that the phrase "all killer no filler" that is so true of that album.
Yeah,
absolutely. Every track is a banger. They've all got their own little special thing, be it there's like some really cool like vocal harmonies going on, or there's a really good riff, or when they decide to like really mellow it down, they're just beautiful tracks too. You know, the whole thing is just like, it's like a rock opera.
Yeah, you know, they've got some fantastic albums. I mean, you're talking about 10 studio albums now since 1993. And I think, you know, Futures is obviously another amazing one. But one that I think just doesn't get enough credit is Chase This Light, that was released in 2007. I absolutely adore that record, and it might have something to do with that. That was the year I saw them for the first time as well, because they played Reading Festival. And you know, I think that was, I wouldn't say peak Jimmy, but I think it's definitely one that goes under the radar for Jimmy Eat World Records.
I think for a different reason. I think I actually saw them on the same year. That was the first time I saw them. And in terms of there are definitely some great songs on that record. There are, for me, because of the likes of Futures and Clarity, it will never be as good as those for me, in my opinion. Yeah. But it's a great record. It is a great record, and it's definitely rated higher than anything that came after it. Invented and Damaged, for me, there's a couple of good tracks, but talking about All Killer No Filler, for me, there was a lot more filler on those records.
Yeah.
Same with Integrity Blues, and actually even with Surviving. I mean, I'll be honest with you, Surviving is not a record that I've really taken on board. I've tried really hard to try and as a big Jimmy Eat World fan, but I do think that actually they've lost their mojo a little bit in terms of the past couple of albums. But when you've written the most beautiful album in the world, where do you go next? It's that difficult 10th album syndrome, right?
Yeah. The difficult 10th album. Just go grindcore.
Yeah.
But they have, they have stayed true to their style of music. They haven't really changed drastically.
I can't agree with that.
Input of electronics or anything. I think if someone was in a coma for like 20 years and they had first heard Bleed America and they wake up and they hear the latest album, they'll know straight away who it is. Whereas some,
that's a good point.
So when was the first time you saw him live then, Carl? Jimmy?
First time I saw them live was at Hatfield at Slam Dunk Festival a few years back. That was literally the first time I saw them. They were amazing. I had a little cry, which is really embarrassing. I properly had a little sobbing moment. Yeah, again, to hear you, me, once that started, man, I was just like,
virtual hug coming in.
Virtual hug. Honestly, I was just, that song started, and I was like, oh god, I know I'm gonna go. I could feel my little, you know what I mean, like that. It's just, but problem is, and this, the problem is with this, I think it's because it's like festival drinking. It's not like normal drinking, is it? Festival drinking is very sustained and prolonged.
They're a lesser at Slam Dunk because you've got a lesser at Slam Dunk because you've got a queue for 4 hours there for a pint. So no one at Slam Dunk ever gets pissed because they just can't get enough in them.
They get in the queue pissed and then they sober up by the time they got another pint.
Yeah, and that year as well at Slam Dunk, they ran out of beer as well. So by about 7:30, there was no beer. So to be honest, if anyone from Slam Dunk festival organisers, never let that ever happen again. Like that, that's a travesty. You don't run out of beer at a festival. Come on.
I can confirm that in 2019, the way they did that was making the queues so long that nobody ever ran out of beer because there were 55 minutes between beers.
What I love about that, imagine being the guy that was first told they've run out of beer. How good.
Yeah.
You'd be like, what?
That was the biggest queue was for the toilets. That was the worst bit about there. It wasn't the beer. It was the toilet queue. Because I just remember going, I really need to go, and then seeing this queue about half a mile long, going, you are kidding me! Like, this is mental. People just like, there's some trees over there. No, that's the acoustic stage. Sorry, mate, I'm going. Well, it's just like a row of like 30 guys just pissing in a tree.
Toilets at festival are a nightmare because not only do they stink by like the third day, but I don't know if you guys are like get awkward.
Thank God it's only for one day there.
But you know when you go for a piss, the urinals, so you've got like a row of strangers on one side, and you're just facing them.
They're not strangers; they're just wee friends. It's fine.
Wee pals. You're like essentially just pissing everywhere, but they think that urinal's like moving from side to side. The piss is going everywhere.
This is actually the one thing they had. This is actually the one thing they had at Slam Dunk this year. Well, 2019, 2 years ago now, was they had these kind of. It was like a dome. It was like a pole in the middle, and then basically had like it was in like to sections and urinals. But it was just a trough, and it was in the middle of a field. So you're basically stood there pissing while watching the band, and there's like.
That's how I want to watch bands. That's how I want to watch bands from now on, mate.
Yeah. I mean, some people are spending far too long having a piss. I mean, I don't know what they were doing, but I mean,
I knew what they were doing.
All I say is the bomb pops were on, and there were a couple of lads spending too much time at the urinal.
Oh,
I don't know what they were up to.
I got a guest.
Leonard.
Oh,
Hey, mate.
Leonard,
say something. Drop some beats, mate.
Who's talking more sense than Steve?
Hey, what's that?
He's going to knock my cable out.
But yeah.
Anyway.
And that's the only time.
That's another way to that is another way to get a award-winning podcast, is to bring animals on board.
Yeah.
Definitely get dogs involved, man.
Well,
That's the way to do it. So that's it. That's the only time I've ever seen Jimmy Eat World, was literally at that festival. It was amazing. I was only about maybe 6 people deep from the front. One thing I did notice though about it was, and this is a bit nerdy, bit techie, but there was no cabs, no amps or anything on stage at all, because obviously they do it where they have all like the cabs that are under the stage, and they were using like those Axe FX like guitar processors. That's everyone seems to be using nowadays. You know, people, if you inevitably nowadays, if you see a cab on stage, it's probably a dummy. There's probably no speakers in the bloody thing at all. It's just there just for visuals, because everyone's using those like Kemper green toasters.
That's what I've got. That is what I use. I've got a Kemper. And yeah, it is the reason a lot of people,
they're amazing.
Yeah, I mean, the reason a lot of people are using them is because you're getting a studio sound that you're not having to mic up. You're getting a sound that, I mean, for me, I bought it when we were in the peak of doing weddings, and it was all about having the ability to turn the whole stage up and down. So with the function band, everything comes out of the front speakers. We've got nothing on stage apart from the drums, obviously. But you're using ear monitors, so it is a totally different experience. And I think a lot of the I went through this phase. I've got a lot of friends that are all about the big stacks, about the and I've been there. I had Marshall 4x12s and stuff like that. But I think to get the best sound live, actually trying to recreate a sound live with a cab and a mic, you're nowhere near it with a Kemper.
Well, that's what's so amazing with these things now, because obviously they have these they literally have their albums I guess sonically downloaded, so it's exactly the studio sound that they had, and then it's all just programmed on a button. Like I've had to, when you see it on the stage, and they've literally the little digital labels will say sweetness, and will say, and they just click through.
There's a lot of them. This is the thing. There's a lot of them actually using those Kempers and the aspects in the studio, so they're actually setting the sounds while they're actually recording the records. If it
genius way of doing it, isn't it? Because
welcome to the 21st century. Welcome
to
the 21st century in terms of musical sound and stuff. I mean,
and I saw a lot of people getting shit for it too, as well. People like, it's like, you're cheating by doing it and stuff like that. But think about how much it costs nowadays to actually move tons of fucking equipment in haulage. Especially when you're in a band like a band from the States coming over for a UK tour or a European tour, and vice versa. Now all you have to do is take your little toaster with you, your guitar. You don't have to take, fucking 4 or rent a bunch of 4x12 cabs and Mesa Boogie Dual Rex and stuff.
This is it. So my friend Chris has got he's got a dual rectifier, and I think we can get so close to his boogie sound with a Kemper that it's not worth having anymore. He will tell you that it doesn't sound the same. And in terms of if I was going to listen to it through his cab with the head, I would almost agree with him. But once you're miking a cab up, you might as well not bother, because you're not getting that same sound. No venue that we ever played has turned up and gone, I've got a $2,000 guitar mic for you to use on your cab. People
it's
are using an
SM58,
which isn't going to give you what you want. Where with the kind of sounds that you need, going direct is a totally different world. It's allowing smaller bands to replicate the ability that a larger band has on stage. There is the way I see it. And actually, it's funny. So Jimmy, in terms of their sound on stage, was changed them dramatically from kind of the Futures record. They were still using boxes and orange amps and stuff like that. It was only after it was only after that album that they actually there's a really good they're on YouTube. There's a Discover My Sounds kind of video with Jim and Tom, and it's a really, really great it's only half an hour, but it's a really, really great insight on this, actually how easy it is to move onto that kind of process of having that kind of setup. I'm from someone who is an advocate of that kind of setup on stage. The more bands that do it, the better, as far as I'm concerned. So, there, as much as I do believe there is still a place for a cab, they're on stage for stage noise, because I think it is important, especially when you're playing stuff like Jimmy World stuff and kind of heavier stuff. That's in terms of the sound that goes out through those front speakers is a much better sound when it's Kempered or Axe Effects than it is if it's a mic'd up cab, for sure.
Cool. So when was the first time that you saw Jimmy live then, Steve?
So I saw them, I'm probably going to get the date wrong, but I think 2008. It was the Chase This Light tour. It was at the Academy in Birmingham before it moved to the new one. So it was the one opposite the Toys R Us, if anyone remembers it. And they just completely blew my mind. So, a story completely off topic. I went with my brother. My brother was only 15, 16, 17, probably around the age, and it was a massive fan of the band 100 Reasons.
Oh yeah.
And we got there, and he was quite young. We took him and kind of
you babysat for the night.
Basically, well, I've been babysitting him my whole life, but you know, we all love that. Keep that in. They were stood in the crowd. We were kind of talking to a couple of guys, and then the security guard was kind of saying, "We sent off." There hadn't been announced who the support act was, and the security guard goes, "Oh, it's some band called 100 Reasons." I mean, just amazing.
Yeah.
100 Reasons, and then Jimmy Eat World, and it was kind of I was in that kind of thing of seeing loads of bands live, and kind of I don't think I really appreciated the fact of how Jimmy were Durham, how good they were live then. It was only actually when I saw them a bit later on. I've seen them 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
And I've got tickets for the if it goes ahead, I've got tickets for the 2000 Trees.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah.
There was obviously didn't go ahead last year, and who knows, it probably isn't going to go ahead this year, unfortunately. But in terms of, I've got tickets for that, so that will be kind of the 4th or 5th time I've seen them live. I've seen them at Bristol a couple of times as well. Yeah, I mean, as a live band, I just think they're very true to their sound. They're very true to how they don't do masses of harmonies live, which is kind of a disappointment to me. But then I would much rather they didn't do them than the song be stronger than them do them and it not be great.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I just think
there's a different vibe from the NoFX gig that you said about on the last podcast.
Yeah, I mean, completely different bands. They're completely different. I think in terms of crowds, you definitely get a slightly older, more mature Durham crowd at Jimmy's show.
I just want to bring up a quick point, if I may, about that, because I think these are one of those bands that I think you get a very diverse fan base with Jimmy, I think, because you can get people that do all types of different genres, but maybe even if it's just that one song in the middle, you know, there's a lot of different kinds of people that like Jimmy Eat World. And I was looking on their Facebook page earlier, and I've got something like 320 Facebook friends or whatever, but they're one band that have got most likes. I know that's not anything to go by, but it just goes to show that, you know, a lot of people that like them, that are into, you know, that could be into metal, non-related rock music, whatever. It just seems like a lot of people have a lot of time for them. I
mean, they are very much a cult band, I would say. I mean, I I launched a couple of years ago. I launched a Jimmy Eat World tribute band called him Jimmy 8 World, and that's been really interesting to see kind of the people that come to those shows. We've kind of done a few shows now, and it is a lot of people that come are diehard Jimmy fans. Like, and I think it took us a bit, but yeah, yeah. But I mean, in terms of we've gone to other towns like Reading and stuff like that. We've actually played some shows with the Foo Fighters tribute, and that's another band that've got the same kind of fan base in terms of lots of different ages. Yeah, a broad appeal is a great term. But actually, we've the one thing I would say, and obviously we'll share some bits for the Jimmy Eat World tribute. Just if anyone hasn't seen it, they can have a look on the Facebook page. Plug all day long. The one thing I would say is that actually there's been a lot of fans that have come to those kind of Foo Fighters shows to watch the Foo Fighters band and have taken in a lot of those Jimmy songs. I think actually they're very easy listening. A lot of those Jimmy songs, they're very easy to digest. Durham, is that the right term? They're quite
I know what you mean.
Poppy in a way that actually you can take them on board.
Palatable.
They're not offensive, are they? They're not an offensive band. You're not screaming or shouting. They're very kind of.
That's a good point. They don't really swear in their songs, do they? They're not like a sweary band.
No.
Like I can never imagine Jim sort of like halfway through like a set being like, "Okay, motherfuckers, let's fucking." I just can't.
I mean,
just wouldn't do it.
I have heard him swear before on stage. I've got a little bit.
They
of
say,
story.
"Gosh darn it."
I saw them in Bristol Academy.
God damn it!
Yeah.
And
golly.
it was a fantastic gig. But, there were a few, let's just call them idiots, that were only there for like a few songs. And from the start until they actually played it, they were just like, play the middle. And Jim at first was like, yeah, that's funny and everything. But it carried on.
Yeah.
And eventually he was just like, look, I'm going to fucking play it. And then everyone was like, yeah. Just in the set, just got patient with it. I think that was 2010 seeing Jimmy. But yeah, that rolled a couple of people up. And but it's a completely different vibe seeing Jimmy live to me. I mean, I like all different types of music, and it's not, let's just say that there wouldn't be a mosh pit for Jimmy. There's not going to be a circle pit or a wall of death. No. But it's sort of just, you stand there and you appreciate them for what they are, which is, if catchy songs that, people love and, people love to sing along to.
Look out, guys. There's another fact incoming. Look out. Did you know that Jimmy Eat World actually had to change the name of Bleed American, the song? Yeah. Because it was released very close to the 9/11 disaster. It was actually named Salt, Sweat, Sugar.
I've got it on the.
So you're not wrong.
I've got it on the track list. Is Bleed American on Apple.
Yeah.
They re-released Bleed America 10 years later. They re-released it back as Bleed America again, but because it was like a deluxe album, wasn't it? Yeah, so in July 2001 was when Bleed America was released, and then obviously on September of 2001 was when 9/11 happened. So they renamed it so people wouldn't be offended by think there's any connotations linked to the disaster that happened on 9/11. But but then 10 years later they did as you said, a special edition Bleed America. I think it's 10 years later or something.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other times
facts, all about the facts.
Yeah,
facts
in your face. Facts.
We need a fact jingle whenever we drop a fact.
A fact, yeah.
Dropping some facts.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Here is your fact of the week.
Might not actually be a fact. Disclaimer.
yeah. This fact might be 60% accurate.
Yes, yeah.
I saw him. I've seen Jimmy 4 times in total. The time I saw him in Bristol Academy was once at the Slam Dunk Festival, and also I saw him at Reading a few times as well. And what's really cool, what they did there in 2000 and 2007 and 2014 is they played the main stage, and then they played one of the smaller stages later in the evening. So they would play like all their hits.
Absolute hussies.
Yeah, and then they would play all their older stuff. I'm pretty sure in 2007 they played Clarity throughout. They played a lot from Clarity anyway, so that was amazing. They headlined like the Lockup tent, and that was really cool.
Yeah.
And then in 2014, that was the 10-year anniversary of Futures, and they played that album from start to finish. And I remember telling you at the time, Stephen, I think you were not optimistic, but that was, yeah, I mean, as you can imagine. Actually, I was on the front row for the Futures one as well, kind of just to the left, but still made the back.
I mean, my friend Chris that I've mentioned, who I've been in bands with for years, actually went to New York to the Clarity tour, and yeah, they just said it was. Said it was one of the most amazing. Yeah, I mean, they didn't come to the UK and do it, so I mean, he had the opportunity to go out there and watch it, and yeah, says it was incredible, amazing experience. I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. Cool.
So, what's your favorite album track?
For me, my favorite song I ever did was a song called "If You Don't," which is actually on Bleed American.
Yeah.
But I don't know why. It's just one of those songs that I love. I've actually got the lyrics, actually in a frame up on my wall, which is actually what I should have put at the back of me today. Why didn't I think of that? They're just over there. But yeah, no. So for me, it's just one of those songs. And actually, when we started doing the tribute band, it was one of those songs that actually was so simple to play, but actually, it's the definition of a Jimmy song where it's very simple musically, but the lyrics drive the whole song.
Yeah,
like. Just really
it's how it's sung too. Like I love the overlapping vocals and stuff that has. The melody is banging with that track. It's so good.
It's actually got one of my favorite Jimmy lyrics of all time, which is "Even if your heart would listen, I doubt I could explain." Which even now I say those words, I've got goosebumps. 20 years later, like it's just a simple line that actually, everyone's been in a position where actually they've, you're absolutely right, you know.
Favorite riff, Steve?
Favorite riff? I like Futures. Was a riff. The song.
Yeah.
They're not overly massive on the riff, I would say. It is in terms of I love. They're in terms of their double guitar work. Futures is great. The middle eight on Futures is one of the most beautiful kind of. That for me is one of the best breakdowns in music. And when we do the tribute, we play it with 3 guitars, and it's just definitely my favorite. Yeah, it's just got all those different and it's a great example of how you can play 3 different riffs, but it all comes together as just one sound. Beautiful, and then the words over the top.
Yeah, that's actually what I would say is one of my favorite guitar riffs as well, is on Futures. But I think it's more because it almost felt like it was like Bleed America Part 2. It's so seamlessly, because obviously it's the first track on Futures, and so it was kind of like that. Oh, what, you know, what's this album going to be like? Is it going to be is going to live up to the past albums? And that opening riff was kind of like, you know, it just is.
Yeah, literally. And actually, I like the way they play it live, because actually they play it differently live, because obviously on the record they start and they all come in. But actually, when they do it live, he actually starts the riff first, and that's actually how we start in the tribute. So I just think it just gives a bit more suspense. Yeah, I mean, for me, it is. I mean, it's not. You then look at the songs like. For me, probably Just Watch the Fireworks is probably one of those songs that, again, is totally lyrically led. There's not ever so simple when it comes to actually the riffs and the little guitar bits. Very, very clever, simple bits. But then I'm a big fan of keep it simple. Sometimes makes the most impact.
Definitely.
We were talking on the previous part about Tom DeLonge and the way he plays lots of single notes. actually I think it makes a big difference. It's knowing what to play and when. It isn't always about, for me, as a musician, I'm not always about who can play the most exciting solo and who can actually play the most.
Yeah.
But for me, it's about how it fits in a live band. And the one thing I will say is obviously they've played. They're on Friday or Saturday night. I think it was Saturday night. They did the Futures and the live stream. And for me, apart from being probably one of my favorite records of all time, being played in live full, the sound was incredible. And just getting to see them play those simple riffs. They did all the harmonies. I mean, I'm not convinced it was 100% live. I would say definitely the quality of it. There's been some overdubs possibly, or it's been really well mixed, I would say. But just amazing, just absolutely. As a Jimmy World fan, it was. I mean, the whole process. I mean, I don't know if any of you guys watched it, but in terms of, I had they do like a pre-show, which is basically them talking about how they produced the record. They were talking about how they were on with a record label. I'm going to say Interscope, which is probably wrong, and they.
That was the chat.
The record label had been taken over, and the new record label basically taken them on halfway through the process of recording Futures. I'm going to say DreamWorks. We may need to check that, but yeah, in terms of, and then they had 10 minutes of Jimmy Eat World fans basically explaining what that record meant to them.
Yeah, I was seeing a lot of that. It's good.
I'll be honest with you, I was totally taken aback by the whole thing. It just took me back 20 years and remembered what those songs meant to me. Songs like Work and Kill. I mean, just when we were kind of 17, 18, we were kind of in that realms of, around that kind of age where everyone has their first breakup, everyone has their first kind of experiences as life of actual pain, you know. For me, that record was it was a godsend. The song Kill, still to this day, it still gives me chills. Really hard to play live. Really hard to play live.
Again, I was a big fan of your band, Jeff Like Usual, back in the day, Steve. And we talked about on the first episode how you know, your first experience of playing that first show at Area. And I remember before you played that, Chris, and another member in the band, sent me a song online called, I think it was called Blisters.
That's 4 mentions he's got on this podcast. He's almost up for royalties now.
Yeah.
The song Blisters was a song that we released,
I loved it. And this is before I met you. Even I was like, this is amazing, because at the time you were only about maybe 17, 18, like you weren't very old. And such a good song. And I said, like, we got to get you guys a gig, like, because he'd never played. I was like, I was really shocked when he said that, and he was just like, well, we never played a show. I was like, I can help you out with that. So kind of helped you get that first gig, and that song was really good, and you know, you had a really good sound, and at that time there were a lot of bands that were playing Area that weren't, you know, that wasn't really the scene back then, was it? You know, there was
absolutely
metal bands and stuff like that were playing Area, but you still managed to get a good crowd down there, and it was always enjoyable watching your set. And you know, for many years from 05 to maybe 08, however long you guys were playing for, I really did enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, the one saw you a couple of times.
Yeah,
I mean, a couple of times. I think that's.
There was a massive Jimmy Wood influence in terms of the guitar work. Durham, weirdly, you know, we were talking initially before we started doing the pod about potentially releasing kind of early demos that we'd all recorded and stuff. Chris, don't want to name him properly, Chris Manners, who I've been in bands with for years, basically gave me the login to his Dropbox, which has got all of the old Jeff Like Usual the recordings. I mean, this week I've been listening to it and I was absolutely blown away. I was like, these are so good. We're actually going to look at trying to get it up on Spotify next week.
I'd love you could.
It's probably the first time I've listened to some of those songs in kind of 15 years.
We'll get the listeners
Or at least 10. Yeah. So there's definitely a reunion gig coming at some point for sure.
I would love that. And yeah, I mean, I could obviously tell that you guys were heavily influenced by Jimmy, and
yeah,
and I knew that Chris was a massive fan.
Yeah,
it was good because it was different. It was something different at the time, you know, compared to all the other heavier bands that were coming out. And you know, never really a bad word to say about you guys. You know, you always played well, and you know, it was good.
I mean, those area days were the kind of the most excitable for me. It was kind of it was the first opportunity we'd had to show these songs. I mean, like a lot of bands that we've been together for a number of years. Those songs have been put together for a number of years. It was just finding the right lineup. And actually, there's a great story about my brother, who was a guitarist, and I'd been trying to convince Chris to allow him to come and join the band on bass. And because we were brothers, I think Chris was a bit reluctant, kind of, oh, yeah, brothers will argue in bands, you know. Yeah. And actually, in the end, he just went, oh, fine, we'll give him away. And as you all know, that was 3 of the 4 members that basically shaped that whole movement in terms of the Jeff Like Usual. So yeah,
even the names are
the name came from the name actually came from somebody we used to go to school with, which he was called Lee Jeffridge, but we used to call him Jeff. And it was just something Chris said, that it was reading a lesson once. Chris said, oh, that's just Jeff Like Usual. And it just stuck. It was one of those things that stuck. Does anybody actually know how the name Jimmy World came about?
Yeah.
Dirt to do with Tom's brother.
Yeah, the eating the dirt with the picture, wasn't it? Right.
Yeah, I did know about the picture on the door. And that's things that's just stuck, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think actually some of those names are rather kind of the best names, are the ones that you kind of go, that's absolutely come from absolutely nowhere. And I think actually it makes such a difference when it comes to like, it's all about the journey for me. It's all about the fact that actually that name, it wasn't something that we sat there for 10 hours. We actually sat there and we thought, you know what, this is the name we're going to make. It just happened.
Yeah.
And actually, I think it's one of those things where, obviously it was meant to be.
Yeah.
So, what is there a favorite track that you've got, Steph?
Well, Sweetness was the first song I ever heard, and if I haven't heard Jimmy for a while, then I'll probably will. That will be like my go-to Jimmy song. But I have to say, the Authority song as well. The intro riff is one of the most catchiest riffs that I've ever heard. Still, whenever my guitar is in drop D, the first thing I'll do to make sure it's in drop D is probably play that song a few times. Just that riff at least. And I just love it. You know, I love the song Work as well. The song 23. And yeah, there's so many. Lucky Denver Mint from Clarity is up there as well. Goodbye Sky Harbor.
Yeah.
Another one. But I think there is an EP that definitely is worth mentioning that was released in 2005. And Stay on My Side Tonight.
Yeah, amazing.
Are you guys a fan of that one?
Yeah, Disintegration is probably one of my favorite songs.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah, so good.
Yeah, it's weird because actually, the Authority song was one of those songs that actually, when we were looking at doing the tribute, was actually a song we didn't look at.
Yeah,
it's actually so.
Yeah.
Sorry, say that again, buddy.
I can understand that, it's not one that kind of sticks out to some people.
Actually, it is a song we've added since. So, because it's a kind of energy song, it's got a really good, it's got a really good kind of mix of Derek guitar riffs and harmonies, which is from how I see Jimmy. One of the things that I think I'd like to mention was actually in terms of what Jimmy produced in the studio compared to what they did live very early on, it was always missing bits. I know that they then decided to bring some people on board. Initially, they brought in a girl called Courtney Andrews, who we'd have probably seen on that to the Chase's Light tour. They then changed that to a lady called Rachel Hayden, basically doing the same things. And then from 2001 onwards, from 2011 onwards, they brought on a guy called Robin Vining, who is the same guy that you now see, the professor, as I call him, because he's got that mad hair and glasses. He has been a big part of that live sound, and I think he definitely deserves the mention in terms of definitely filling out that sound.
Yeah.
It made such a difference to them live. Rabia, what about you? What about you, Carl? What's your kind of song choices or albums?
Bleed America is definitely my favorite album. Hear You Me was definitely my favorite track, I think, just because it's just one of those songs that just pulls at those emo heartstrings. But Futures, I loved Futures. I used to listen to it whilst playing Final Fantasy VII. I used to have it on the background because there's no, it's just music, isn't it? In Final Fantasy VII, there's no talking or anything like that. So I used to listen. I used to have that and Dashboard Confessional on rotation.
Another great emo band.
There you go. And so I used to listen to that quite often. But Work, Pay and Kill, that is just all awesome songs. I just think they sort of tickle my my emo bone. That's what I like about it. But that's it.
Yeah. In terms of I see Jimmy, and this will be a great feed onto something that me and Steph have spoken about this week, is I think Jimmy World are the obvious dad rock choice. When you're looking at kind of the bands that they're not your Blink, they're not your even your Green Day, they had a star, but you kind of they're all about the music. No one's going, I love Jimmy World for their image.
Like Jim.
The music, it's the music, it's the vocals. Let's face it, Jim's vocals are amazing. He's a phenomenal singer, and to a degree, I guess that is a huge part of their sound is his voice. That his little wobble, that little warble that he has in his voice, that is
just a phenomenal
really hard
songwriter.
to recreate. Yeah, really good songwriter, and he can write so perfectly for the band. You know what I mean? And I guess. And being the fact that he's also the lead guitarist and singer, which is kind of a bit sort of flies in the face of the norm. Normally you have your rhythm guitarist and main singer and stuff. But I guess maybe a lot of that's down to the fact that if you go to the earlier Jimmy albums before Bleed America, where there was dual vocal duties between him and Tom.
I really like
both used to sing.
I really like Tom's voice on stuff like obviously stuff on Blister, and I really like Tom's voice, but that's just more to my kind of my roots of kind of that kind of to that not eccentric singer. I mean, the one kind of step away from being that kind of everything's about the music was when obviously Jim released his own Derek guitar to the J90.
I nearly bought that.
I'll be honest with you, in 2011 2012 I went to Anderton's in Guildford to buy that guitar,
Yeah.
I was, as a massive
What put
Jimmy
you
Ward
off?
fan, I played it.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it just didn't give me what I needed.
Yeah.
It felt like it felt like a £500 guitar,
Mm.
which when I was
And it
buying
probably is though.
yeah. I mean, the thing is that when I was buying a £500 guitar, you're all going, yeah, well, that's what you're buying. But actually, in the end, I bought a Lone Star Strat, which was about £650, but played like a £1,200 Strat.
There you go.
But yeah, in terms of it just didn't feel like a guitar for me. For him, obviously, it works.
Yeah.
And I know people that have bought that guitar. I've got a good friend, John Oborn, who plays bass in the Jimmy Eat World tribute bands. Daryl owned one of those guitars. Daryl, he really liked it. So Daryl, again, I think it's down to just personal preference. But in terms of, it was a bold step from a man that had kind of, there was all about the music, or all of a sudden Fender had released his own model. It was
I thought it was really cool. Was at NAMM, like he actually promoted it, like the actual NAMM.
Yeah,
last year, because he released the white one, right? Because he was always the cherry and black version that I used to see, and then they did the white version, which is what he's been using more recently.
I think I love the look of it. I mean, as a guitar, it's a beautiful guitar to look at. It just didn't give me the feel that I needed. For me, I'm all about the feel of a guitar, and for me, it just didn't give me the feel I wanted. Shame, really.
Between a Les Paul and a Telecaster, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's got the fatter neck. It's a Telecaster with basically Les Paul neck, which gives you that kind of fatter. Which me, I mean, my kind of heritage is playing an SG. I had a Gibson SG from very early on. So having that fatter neck was something that I thought would be an instant hit for me, but actually, in terms of the actual play and the way it felt, it didn't feel like my.
Do you know?
Go on.
Do you know why it works for him? It's because I was watching an interview with him the other day, and he said that he played so much acoustic, and whenever he picked that guitar up, he said, "This feels exactly the same as the acoustic." And
he plays with 13s. He uses 13s on his electric guitar, which is really heavy, very heavy. Yeah, that's gonna hurt.
Yeah, the stream that's just happened, the To the Future stream. I urge anybody that hasn't seen it, who's a Jimmy Eat World fan, or even if you're not a Jimmy Eat World fan, the videography, the sound, and actually my favorite song of the whole thing, there was Drugs or Me, which is not a song that really resonates with me a lot time. I'm all about the kind of poppier, the kind of, but actually it was beautiful the way they did it. Again, with Robin playing keys, it made such a difference to the actual sound. And actually, I think sometimes when I've seen Jimmy Eat World live, well, I don't want to say they've been let down by the overall sound, but in terms of I think when you listen, if anyone gets the opportunity to listen to that when it's mixed and masters, it makes such a difference to the overall sound.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I'm meaning to check that out. I have been watching a lot of streams from other bands that I've been into and stuff, and I've been really impressed. It's a completely different type of band, but there's a metalcore band I really like called Architects. And they did a live performance in the Royal Albert Hall about 2 months ago or so, and that was pretty incredible. Just amazing. And it's sad that we're in this state at the moment where the closest we can get to these bands is watching live performances on the internet. I don't think we ever thought we would live in a world where that is the case. The last time I went to a gig is coming up to a year now. And until that happens, if bands can keep putting stuff out on the internet, then I'm all for it. And it's important to keep supporting the bands as well, because obviously, they rely on that tour money and everything. Whenever they go on tour, they rely on ticket sales.
This thing, I mean, for someone who's vaguely in the industry, for someone I haven't played a gig in almost a year, it isn't my first income. So for me, I'm quite lucky. But in terms of, I'm very conscious that actually as an industry, it's on its knees.
Yeah.
So the fact that, yes, for the 3 gigs, it cost me 50 quid to buy 3 tickets for the Jimmy Eat World. They're for all 3, but actually, what's 50 quid? You know, if you were going to see those 3 shows, you'd pay much more than that.
Yeah.
So for me, actually, the opportunity for me to actually be able to say, do you know what, I've contributed to that industry.
And we're all saving money right now, you know. Anyway, it's not like we're all down the pub, is it?
Well, I'd love to say I'm spending shitloads of money on beer and podcast equipment, but apart from that, yeah. Okay, guys, thank you again for listening. Derek, from the 3 of us, thank you for your continual support. As I say, this is just something we thought of. There is a way of helping ourselves, if not yourselves, through this lockdown period. Next week, we're going to be talking about what it's like to be in a band, the live aspect, the recording aspect, the kind of the politics of being in a band, I guess. So yeah, looking forward to talking about that.
Cool.
Thanks again. We'll see you next week.
Stay safe.
Thanks, guys.
Cheerio. Monge toot. Bye-bye.